What's up, yo? Welcome to Blazi Blah, where we connect, build, and break bread with motherfucking folks in our community. And who the fuck is this?
Yo, this is Menor, aka Abraham. You know,
Menor. Yo, been in the motherfucking community leader. You know what I mean? Like FYC, FANHS, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Photographer.
Yeah.
Out there on the streets, I see you.
Yeah.
We just saw each other like yesterday at the streets.
No, we did it. I've been on lockdown.
Don't tell nobody. Oh man, so what's good, man? What's good with you? How are you doing?
Chilling, man, chilling. Thank you, first off, for allowing me to be here with you to chop it up. But I'm doing all right, considering we just got through a crazy year and we're going into another crazy 4 years. But it's all about just keeping your chin up,
Yeah, so we're just trying to survive out here, man. It's hard out there, that's for sure, man. Mm-hmm. Man, you just getting out of work or what's going on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, was on a call right, and I was like, all right, I gotta end this.
Where you work at?
I work for an organization that works with young adults, getting them into the workforce development field and training them.
What's the organization?
I don't know if I could release that.
That's okay. He's doing some work. That's all you got to know. That's all you got to know. That's what's up.
No, I work for an organization called Europe. So,
What did it say? Say it again, so folks can hear it.
Yeah, Europe is an organization focused on closing the opportunity divide within not only the tech industry, but also just in the workforce industry where young people of color don't usually or sometimes are not represented or have the access to. So, we got a lot of folks throughout the nation that got these skills and talent and the grit, but they might not have the work skills or just the opportunity to step in. And so my organization works with young people to give them the proper tools, training, to set them up and to know how to exist within maybe, in a field that might not even give them a second look.
That's right, man. People are struggling out there. Definitely, any opportunities, provide opportunities. That's what's up. So, let's get started with the questions.
Yeah.
So, my first question is what is you and your family's migration story? How did y'all get here in the U.S.? Because we're Filipinos,
Yeah. No. So I was born here. Here in the Bay Area.
So are you a first generation, second generation? What are you like?
I'm like what they would maybe consider 1.5.
1.5. Okay.
1.5. So I'll break that down. Both of my grandfathers came here in the 1920s. They worked in the plantation fields in Hawaii.
That's history.
And so they worked in the plantation fields or worked in like hospitality in the hotels and whatnot, or in the restaurant industry. And then both of them, on my mom and my father's side, enlisted and fought in World War II. And then that's how they were able to bring my family over post-World War II. And so my parents have been here for a long time as well, and that's why it's like 1.5.
Right.
Because they came over when they were already young in elementary school, or middle school, I should say. And then, that's kind of the migration.
Yeah. Most migration story comes from either it's the military, the farm workers, nurses, and whatever the U.S. need in terms of labor.
Right.
And I think just to give a little history and lesson in essence is that in the 1920s the Philippines was controlled by the U.S. It was colonized by the U.S. And so what the U.S. needed workers in the farms of California and Hawaii. So they recruited and took Filipinos and plugged them into the different parts of U.S. So actually, Filipino had a lot to do with developing the farms, the lands in the California. And again, it was worth more than the gold rush because the plantations, whatever they're planting, it's in essence grows and grows every you know what I mean? And so it was more profitable in essence, so they needed labor. And so that's how a lot of Filipinos got here in terms of the need of the US for labor. So whether it's the Hawaii, your family, my family, military, like my great grandpa, which I shared like the podcast before, like he was one of the first to join one out of 9 that joined the U.S. Navy, like the first.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And so we have family in in the military that, and I mean, I was also part of the military. I became part of the military. And so, yeah, we have history of folks like getting here in terms of like military labor. That's part of our history, man. So we're getting in already.
Yeah, man.
Oh my God, man. So they were farm workers.
Yeah. So, landed in Hawaii, right, and worked in the plantation.
Wait. You speak pidgin?
If you get me to a point, I can.
Okay.
Because I spent a number of summers and just time with my family. We still have family out there.
Okay.
In the island, so it's still very close and tied to our family dear. But yeah, you get me
For sure.
to a point. I can get down.
Okay.
Especially if I'm out there, I'm like all of a sudden you get off the plane.
It just picks up.
I'm like, oh.
You can just pick it up.
Yeah.
Oh man, how many? Do you have other families around the world, like in terms of like other countries?
Yeah, I got family, that from the Philippines currently that are working in other countries.
Like what countries? What countries?
I had aunties in Dubai.
Yeah.
Had some relatives in Hong Kong.
Yes.
So definitely in different parts, and they migrate, they move.
For sure.
Right. Yeah. So
that's in essence is like what we call the forced migration. Like in the Philippines is in poverty and the corruption. We are forced to look for better opportunities. And we have this culture of leaving the Philippines, and like if any one of y'all like you know someone in your family or know someone that's like outside of the Philippines, whether it's Dubai, the Middle East, Europe, or even in the U.S.
Right.
That's part of our history. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so well, what got you into photography? I always see him out on the street. We out there in the rally. I see you, and you always have that camera. Always trying to capture the picture. The essence of that moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how did you get into it?
Yeah, man. So it really started back when I was in high school. When I was doing graph writing, I was a graffiti artist. And when you're painting or you're creating, you're always wanting to take pictures of your own work and others' works because it's not permanent.
Right.
So I always played around with a camera because I was documenting, collecting pictures of the different pieces of either my homies or just other artists. And that was like how I got introduced to just taking pictures, not photography, but just taking pictures.
Okay.
It wasn't till later, in my early adulthood.
You didn't want to give up his age. Early adulthood, fucking with you. Let's go.
So this is how it's gonna be.
That's what it is. Let's go.
I got it.
We Blazi blah. That's what's up.
I got it. I went to community college. Didn't know what the heck I was doing there.
Yeah, not a lot of people do.
And
but
then
we going.
Took a photography class. I was
Dope.
like, okay, this is cool.
Okay.
This is something in line with art. And at that time, I was learning photography, but wasn't really taking it seriously. But then I started I was volunteering at Northside Community Center, where a lot of World War II veterans and some of the last existing monos would be at. And I just started taking pictures of them because I understood that, at that time they were fighting for their veterans, equity and veterans' rights, right?
Yes.
And so I was capturing their story, but also learning their story and just about what they put down in the U.S. So that's kind of like how the documentarian piece came about and how I started to understand photography as photography and not just taking pictures. And then from there, you know, I was always into like just capturing the different subcultures of San Jose.
Break,
Hip-hop, yeah.
break down a little bit in terms of the Filipino veterans, in terms of their demand for justice and what they had to go through.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't get their full equity, they didn't get their full benefits, right? When they fought in World War II, and this was 2000, like early 2000s, I think, when I started shooting, and
Yeah.
look how many years
Okay.
that was
Yeah.
in between when they were fighting the war, right? And so when I started learning, I started to get more interested in what my grandfathers went through. Because, you know, I think due to the fact that that history was in my family, sometimes you don't really, you know, you don't really explore or know because they might not talk about it.
Right, right.
Or you're just not like in tune. And so when I was volunteering, you know, serving, you know, the Saturday, Sunday lunches and just hanging out and setting up their card tables, you know, you're learning more. And as I was connecting, I was like, dang, hold on. You know, I have one grandfather who passed already, but I still have one that's living that I could talk to.
Bring the mic closer to you. Yeah. That's dope.
And so to answer your question, that's where I started to get more in tune to really want to understand our Filipino-American history and just our history of the Philippines and how it all intersected with the U.S. and what was going on.
And that's the best place to start. I mean, you can start anywhere as long as you keep going and you keep digging and you keep learning.
Right.
I mean, yeah, like Filipino joined the military. They were promised all these things, and at the end, they never got it. So that was the fight for, in terms of the veterans for fighting for equity.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. I mean, again, like we just talked about, like, you know, how the U.S. used the Filipinos for labor in terms of the farms, in terms of like the military, and, you know, they were in essence exploited, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in terms of that specific campaign, what was that first picture that you took that you were like, damn? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What was that picture? Was it color? Was it black and white? What was that image look like? Who, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Break it down.
Yeah, no, at that time I was shooting mostly black and white.
Ooh.
So, you know, that's kind of like my schooling and training was black and white. And
That's before Photoshop and all that.
oh yeah. Before Photoshop, before anything digital. And man, there's so many images that are running through my head right now. But
What is the most significant out of those?
one of the most significant one was when we took a number of the veterans, we would take them to the Martin Luther King Freedom Train March, right? Because one, it was to bring light and attention to their movement,
Sure.
what was going on, right?
Solidarity.
And solidarity. But two, it was also to inform and educate our manongs and any of our young people that were also coming along to understand, you know, the fight of civil rights,
Right.
right, and make the connection. And so I remember just taking this picture of, you know, our manongs. You know, we would bring our bag lunches, and man, for them to be marching, you know, 70, 80 years old, and they marching from Caltrain all the way to the Civic Center. That's a long ass march, and in the rain too. But I remember capturing this moment of them. We're all eating sandwiches, and you could just tell that this experience for them was something out of the ordinary, right? Because they're not doing it every day,
Right.
But you could just tell that they were able to take something from it, but they were able to give something to it as well. And seeing them be able to, you know, people come in, what's going? Why are all you old timers, Filipino old timers here? And them talking about, you know, their struggle and their fight.
Yeah.
That was pretty dope. And so capturing those moments, either on the train or taking the bus to the Civic Center, or from just capturing those moments of them, like, you know, who knows what was going through their head of what they just experienced, but being able to capture that essence, that moment of them just being there.
Yeah. I mean, like, what year was this when you started taking these pictures?
This was like just 2000s, early 2000s.
And
Yeah.
now it's 21. So you have 21 years
21 years.
of
yeah.
pictures.
It's crazy.
21 years of pictures out there in the streets.
Out there in the streets, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn, have you ever done a show?
I've done shows, but nothing specifically just for the Manongs or the veterans. But I've included, their images, their pictures at different shows. But yeah, I definitely. Anytime I have a show, I like to not work off of one theme unless it's asked of me.
Okay.
I like to incorporate everything, so you get a little bit of this and that.
All
that
your
you get to
collection.
see, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Because then I think it's like it's allowing the audience to experience not just one theme or one moment, but just a bunch of other things that I might have had an opportunity to document or be a part of.
I wanted to touch on in terms of what you talked about in regards to the veterans. They're in their 70s and they're still out there marching. You know what I mean? Like still fighting, for what that was taken away from them. And I think I wanted to say something in regards to you can't underestimate the pain and their struggles and their anger, you know what I mean? And being able to redirect those things to fight for what is right.
And their pride.
Yeah.
And their pride, you know?
Yeah.
Like these are men and women that were able to still stand and be proud. Like I think the one thing that I took away and that I learned the most was, no matter how much you're shut down, or no matter how much you're put down, or how discouraging it may be, like you can't stop the fight, right? Because at the end of the day, all you have is this, right?
Yeah.
And collectively, when they saw each other and said, there's a meaning and there's a purpose, and then seeing the next generations or the younger generations fight alongside with them, it gave them purpose to do these marches, to tell their stories, to share their history.
That's what's up. So 2020 hits, COVID hits, pandemic. How did you do at that moment when there was like a shelter in place, quarantine in the first 2-3 weeks, and then so on? Like how did you feel around that time?
Yeah, and we didn't know what to expect or what it was or what was going to come out of it. If you're working, they're like, yeah, maybe 3 weeks we'll come back when things settle down, and those 3 weeks turned into 3 months, and then all of a sudden a year.
Yeah.
As a professional, I just had to keep moving, right? But as a creative, it hit me hard by the second, third month. I was like, wait, how am I going to exist? Like, one, I like connecting with people. That's
right?
where I get my inspiration.
It's like this.
Right? Yeah.
Wow, we can't have this.
and then I was like, well, shoot, I like to do street photography and documentary photography. Right. I don't just go out there and take pictures of nature.
Or in the backyard, you
gotta
be out there in the streets.
Yeah, gotta be out there. And so it hit hard as a creative because I didn't know how to necessarily navigate because it was all new. I think it was all new to all of us to figure out how to just exist in that time. But yeah, man, it hit. And then I was like, well, if you someone that documents life, you got to figure out how to document life. Right. That's what it came down to.
Well, yeah. And that reflects the time.
And whether there was no one in the streets or they told you don't go outside, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to figure it out and hopefully not get arrested on lockdown or whatever, or get cited, and just take a picture of if it's ghost town. Did
you take pictures of like empty, like?
Yeah, man.
Oh, that is dope.
Empty buildings, empty streets.
Yeah.
Houseless people just trying to figure out where they were gonna go and exist. And so I was taking pictures of that.
That's actually dope.
Yeah.
Like, I went to SF like a couple weekends ago, and it was like 9-10 o'clock, and the streets were empty.
Quiet.
And the buildings was just like, it looked kind of eerie.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like they were sleeping, like buildings sleep.
Yeah. But I can imagine. I was like, like this, like moment of capturing this moment in which you did in terms of like locally, That's like a capsule in time. Like, you know what I mean? Like that reflects in a sense of a time. Like, yo, there was time that it was empty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was sleeping.
Oh, man. So 20 years of photography. What are you planning to do with it?
Man, that's a good question. So 2020 was supposed to be a year where I was going to release a big project of documenting San Jose for 20 years. But COVID hit, and I don't like to do any kind of exhibits unless it's in person.
Right.
I'm all about having a party.
Right? Connecting. That's what's up.
And I know when people are watching this, y'all gonna yell and be like, "No, you could do it online," and I know I can.
It ain't the same.
But it's not the same.
It ain't the same.
And I'm not ready to give up my power for me to make the decision to not have things in person. So I could take a vacay real quick.
I mean, you waited 20 years. Couple more years, okay.
Yeah, a couple more years, it'll be all right. So that's one big project as far as like the years of photographing. But I got so much material, bro, that I just, I have like 7 years documenting in the prisons that I want to be able to show. But I have certain guidelines that I have to go by within the people that I've taken photos of, and also the system as well.
So there's legalities in terms of being able to release what you captured. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then shoot, I would love to do something small, or not small, but do a little project that focuses on like the different social movements and political movements that I've documented. But yeah, there's a lot of good material that I want to be able to share with the world as far as what I've just captured.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Thanks for sharing all those. I mean, 20 years of work. Did you ever think about putting a book together?
Yeah. Before I go into what I've currently completed, I have a couple of books that I put together. And then I like making zines.
Wait. You said couple?
Yeah.
A couple of books? wait. Like, I want to highlight that. You have a couple of books. You have a couple of published books.
Yeah,
not just one.
Not just one.
Just two.
Or 3 or 4.
Okay, stop. You got 4 now. So tell me about the books then. Let's go.
Yeah, well, I'll break it down real fast. No,
take your time, bro.
Okay, I got you. So zines, for those who do not know, it's like independent do-it-yourself publications. So basically, you Xerox copy or put these together, you staple it or whatever, and then that's a zine. You give it to people, sell it, whatnot. And I have about 60 zines that I've made over the years, and it's just different themes, different type of images and pictures and themes.
60. And each zine, how many pages and pictures?
Probably like at least 15 to 20 pages, if not more.
Okay, so that's 30 images.
30.
And then
or more. Because it could be double images a page or single, whatever.
So in terms of the zine, like that's a lot of zines. And what was the intent in terms of creating the zine?
Good question. I was hoping you was going to hit that.
Okay. Let's go.
Yeah, so, when you think of art or art galleries or museums, right, you think about having a purchase. And zines was a good way to get your work out there, whether you're an artist or a photographer or a writer or whatnot, out there quickly and at an affordable cost, right? If you were to sell them. Okay. But zine culture is all about bartering and trading as well. So if you were to make a zine, I'd be like, Dulupo, you got a zine? You got your zine? Let's trade.
Okay.
What you got? That's how you network as artists and creatives. And so that's why I was making zines, because I was like, how do I get this out to the people without having to charge people if I didn't want to, right? And making sure that my art is also for free, because that's, as artists, man, we
gotta survive.
We gotta survive, but we're our worst talent because we love to give our stuff out.
Oh, hell yeah. I hate that shit about myself. People come to my booth and they don't even ask. I'm like, you want this guy? I'm like, no, stop that. You want this? I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
people around me be like, yo, stop giving your shit away.
Yeah, you're like, oh, thank you for buying a shirt. I got this one for you too.
Yeah. You just add on and they're like, yo, how you making your money?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
and so that's how the zines came about, and the zines also, encouraged me, like, and inspired me to do something more. Like, how do I get to a book? And so when I was in FYC, when I was working for FYC,
Filipino Youth Coalition, San Jose.
Coalition, yep.
Good Lord.
I was in Tony Santana's class, and he had a warm-up question. What do you want to accomplish in 5 years? And it came to me, and I was like, I want to make a book in 5 years. 5 years later, I put out my first book.
Dope.
Kept Absorbed, and it's just a collection of street photography that I took, all around the world. I didn't know anything, had no experience, but got a little bit of help from these cats called Hamburger Eyes, and then I put that out. From there, I worked on another project with a homie, Sean Boyles, who's a muralist and artist. We did a collaboration project and put a book together from that project. And then I did another book focusing on vinyl collectors, record collectors, called Digging Sound Collect. And so that was that third? Yeah, third. That going into what I'm going to talk about now, which is Digging Sound Collect, Volume 2. So after the first one, I got a lot of good feedback and response, and I figured, let me continue and build off of this project. So I just finished this last month. When COVID hit, there was a huge pause, but my inspiration was, not to stop and just to keep pushing regardless. And so, yeah.
So the book is Digging Sound Collect by Abraham Menor. So it's a collection of photos, black and white, artistic, aesthetic, aesthetically, put together. Like, it's black and white, even the book is white. Gotta show it up, bruh. And so it's just people with their collections of vinyl. It's a vinyl collection. How people love their vinyl. The vinyl culture.
Right.
Yeah. The nostalgic that comes with having all those things, and then you capturing their moment and their love for it. Okay. That's kind of dope.
Yeah.
Okay. This one's for me, okay? I'm going to take this one real quick.
He says it live so that way that's his receipt.
You know what I mean? Hey.
Can't take it back now.
I'm playing. But how many copies do you have here still of this?
Yeah, so I did a run of 200.
Okay.
And thankfully social media and online is still active, so I'm pretty much down to my last 100.
Okay.
So
we're halfway there. Let's go.
Yeah. So and the first half sold within the week. So that was a good plug, and so I'm very appreciative that everyone's support.
That's dope.
And then I'm doing the pop-up at Kukui Clothing this Saturday.
All right, shout out to the Kukui.
Yeah. So hopefully that goes well, and people are playing it safe, playing it smart, and they can pick up one. But yeah, just excited to hit another milestone.
How many pages and how much is the book, and where can they get them other than the pop-up at Kukui? Where can they get them?
Sure. So 112 pages are in the book, and there's 40 collectors who are documented in this book. And then you could go to, I guess the Instagram's the easiest thing, which is Digging Sound Collect. And then there's all the information in the bio.
And how much did you say?
Oh, I'm sorry, 26.
26.
Yeah.
Plus tax. Shipping and handling.
There. Hella Pinoy right here. Hella Pinoy. Got to do all the checks. I'm like, You right.
I'm playing.
You're
We'll
right.
deliver it ourselves. You know what I mean? We'll knock on your door. That's what's up.
Yeah, I take ponce, lumpia.
We can trade. I'm gonna take the books. I'm gonna take advantage of his kindness as an artist. Like, we just talking about giving away shit. And he can't say no. Like, that's how he is. Like, fuck it, it's yours. But if you ever need support in regards to being able to push these collections, and however I can support in regards to pushing it, I have a space, I have online, so just let me know. But in terms of this specific book, it applies to all the different collections that you put together. When you photograph individuals, do you ever get a chance to build with them and build relationship with them?
Yeah, good question. For sure, I just to like allow people into the world of when you're documenting through photography, it's not just all the time you're just snapping away and taking a picture, right? You got to build rapport. For this project, a lot of folks I knew, but a lot of folks I was meeting for the first time, whether it's through social media or through a referral. So you got to build a rapport, you got to build trust, because you're going into these people's spaces.
Right.
Some people, like, they've never allowed even their friends into the space.
Right. It's their collection.
And it's their own, like, their sacred space, right?
Yes.
And so you have to definitely make sure, you approaching them, on a level of honesty, transparency, and showing them what is your intention. And so during the time, like, I'm also recording their audio. Okay. As we're having these conversations. And a lot that came out of it, man, is you're asking a simple question.
Right.
How did you get into vinyl? And that open-ended question could lead to so many stories.
Yes.
Right? And so I was hearing stories of pain, misery, happiness, and joy. Yeah. Like, where people were telling me stories that they've never told anyone. Right. So I was just like, holy crap. So yeah, definitely a lot of good stories and a lot of developing relationships. And from the first one that I did in 2019, I'm still, and it's only been 2 years later, but I'm still in connection with a lot of these folks. I'm still in communication. So I think, a lot of the relationships that I made from these two projects have definitely carried on, and I think they're going to carry on, for a long time, because I love vinyl as well. For sure. That's the passion behind the project.
So in regards to publishing a book and photographing individuals, what is the process in terms of being able to release their images? Is there some kind of contract? You know what I mean? Like, what's that process? Just for the folks that might be interested in photography and just interested in, like, maybe releasing a collection of photography with, and publishing something, maybe something you could share. What is that process?
Yeah, that's a whole learning process, because
sure.
I didn't know that stuff, all the legality.
And now we can help them with the learning curve. Let's go. Give it to them.
Let's educate everyone. Well, first and foremost, regardless of if you get verbal agreement, right, that it's okay. Like, sometimes people are like, yeah, whatever. It's like, cool, I'm doing this for the project. You always want to make sure that you're protecting not only yourself, but you're protecting the people that you're capturing or documenting, right? Okay. So that's first and foremost. Like, you have to know that in the back of your head. Anytime that you're publishing something, it depends, right? If I'm publishing something that's street photography and it's mostly photos that I've taken in the street, there's different legalities with
public,
because it's public. Exactly, right? No, I forgot you're very active in the public.
Don't tell nobody. Don't tell nobody.
That's one thing, right? But in general, you want to make sure that if you're making any kind of revenue, money off of it, you have to make sure, or you don't have to, but I would say you should make sure that there is some type of contract or written agreement, right? Because here's the other part. If someone bootlegs this, or someone wants to take the image and post it somewhere for monetary reasons, right, that's going against not only just the photographer or artist's rights, but also the people's rights too, right? So that's one thing that I always want to make sure that I'm protecting not only myself, but the folks that I'm shooting. And then also making sure that if I'm making any kind of profit, there has to be an agreement. Because I don't want to ever make any profit off anything, and then someone says, "What the heck? You're selling this?" I thought you were just taking pictures. And then it becomes a different conversation.
You gotta let them know.
So so people that are in both of my projects, I had them sign releases, and it's more of my thought of protecting, but also, I am making profit off of it, but not making profit off of to like make this into because it is a commodity in the sense, but not like I'm not taking this to a corporation and saying, "Hey, let's move this even further."
It's on an independent level,
with
relationship with the people.
Right.
In a sense, you're not trying to get rich.
Yeah.
You just want to put your art out there in a way that you can, and then being able to afford to put more art out there.
And the reason, good point. You, this guy's good.
Don't tell nobody.
He must have some kind of business. But the reason why I was able to do the second one is because everything that I made from the first one went into the second one.
That's what it is. Like, so whatever profit you make off a project, that pushes the next project in terms of what capacity it can you can be able to articulate it to.
Right.
And so yeah. In terms of photography and you capturing images, whether it's a collection, whether it's the streets, whether it's people out there in the movement, do you ever, or have you ever, like, capture yourself, the image of yourself?
Oh, yeah. Like selfies?
No, not selfies, like artistically. No, not selfies.
Man, yeah. Like if I cross a mirror or I cross a reflection, and I wish I had the photographer's name because I can't reference her right now. But yeah, all day, man. Like the only pictures that I like being taken of me is by myself.
Conceited ass motherfucker. I'm playing.
If there's a reflection, because
just take a picture,
especially in the streets. When you pass in a store shop, the thing that I might see is a background behind me, or I might want to just document because, like I said, I'm literally the person that's always behind the lens.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I asked.
I'm never in front of it.
Yeah.
And so,
but when you do get a chance, and there's an image that reflects that, like, okay, this is a dope ass shot.
I don't want people to be like, damn, we don't have no pictures of this fool. He's never in any pictures.
Okay, I have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
When's that collection coming out? And what would you title it?
Man, this guy's good.
So we have a collection of Menor, 112 pages, black and white. What's the theme?
It'd be Abe.
We charge you $1,000 per copy. That's what's up. Oh my God. So, how has COVID impacted? I think you shared a little bit of it.
Impacted photography, but this project?
Yeah. Because you have other projects. How has that really slowed down? And what are your plans in terms of being able to adjust to the pandemic condition?
Yeah. So, when the summer uprising happened, due to the murder of George Floyd,
Black Lives Matter,
Breonna Taylor, people were going out in the streets.
In the middle of a pandemic. There's anger, there's pain. Let's go.
Heat. It was like, I don't want to be in the house. And I think that was like this. Well, before that, I was documenting friends. Right? I was like, wear your mask. I want to document you because you look funny. I'm just playing. No, but documenting, how people were existing in the time. So I was doing that. But when the summer uprising happened, man, that just sparked it. There was something in me, in my soul and spirit that just was like, you going out there.
Sure.
And of course, be safe and smart as much as possible. But yeah, that really sparked it. And then once I was in that groove, I was like, okay, I think I know how to exist in this current climate and know how to push forward. But again, I just always had to be smart.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And then from there, like this project, it stopped. Like when the pandemic I just came back from, I flew to freaking Vancouver right when it hit Seattle. And so I had to go through Seattle when I was just learning about this whole thing, but it wasn't blowing out of proportion yet.
Okay.
And then when I came back, that's when it all hit. And so I had to stop, and I was already in full momentum of the project. And so I just thought, I'm putting this on the shelf. I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm just not in the spirit to do so. But after, things started to settle down after the summer, man, I was listening to a record, and it was a record that just spoke to me. The lyrics was like, keep on pushing. Don't let your spirits down. And I said, okay, well, let me just reach out to people, see how they feel. Because in the beginning, shoot, I probably wouldn't even want to talk to you on the phone.
Because we don't know.
We don't know. They were talking about 5G, and I was like, "What? It's through the towers?
It's through the Wi-Fi's. You can get it through Wi-Fi."
And so I just started reaching out to folks, and I was like, "Hey, man, I'm just letting you know. Like, I've been playing it safe. I haven't been in contact. I quarantine every 2 weeks if I am in contact, because I'm really I want to see my moms." So I need to make sure that I'm safe, right?
Yeah, the family's safe. Yeah.
And so I was reaching out to people. There were some folks that are like, yeah, I'm not ready yet. And I was like, no, I respect that. And then there were some folks that were like, hey, if you don't mind, if we do it from a distance or whatever, we can figure it out. And I'm like, yeah. So going back to just how am I adjusting, I think that's all we can do, right, is know how to navigate differently.
Sure.
Right? Understand that this is the normalcy that we're going to exist in for a while. So being able to approach people or being able to put myself out there is the one thing that I've figured out. And I'm not going to be doing things the way that we used to.
For sure.
That's just not, that's not it. That's not going to happen.
It's a new times, man.
But I'm also, and not in a selfish manner, but I'm also going to make sure that I do what I love, and I do what I was put here to do.
For sure.
And that's all I can do for right now.
Question.
You've been asking all kinds of
questions. Man, that's what we do all day. Feel free to ask me questions, but you put it back on me. But anyways, do you have an image of me? Have you captured me on the streets?
Which one, man?
I don't know. You tell me. I don't know. I don't know what you taking me.
I got some good ones. I got you flexing in the background.
Okay.
My favorite ones of you, bro.
What?
Is when
I'm just joking, but you really do.
Okay. Man, come on, man.
What you got? I want to know.
I'm a ninja.
Now I gotta see this shit.
I'm a ninja.
Now I gotta see this shit. Okay, what you got?
My favorite ones is when you on that horn, man. That horn, and I'm just like, it's about to go down. But when you're on that horn, and you're speaking your truth and your power, when you're chanting with the people, right? That's like that type of photography. That's what I like to get, that raw, organic. You don't know I'm even around.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to get. Like I got a number of good ones.
Okay.
For sure.
Now I got to see that shit.
Yeah. Well, shoot, if we could get out of this.
What I got to do to get the rights? We're gonna have to do some business over here. Oh man.
But yeah, definitely like those, and I'm being serious. Like, anyone I come across. And if I have my camera, you're going to be in one of my pictures. I'm sorry, whether you like it or not.
I'm going to put you in a bottle.
I'm like, shoot, I might give you a warning and tell you to remove your muta, your muka,
No, you don't even ask, motherfucker.
I'll be like, hey, man.
Gotcha.
Your spit right here. Wipe the microphone. But yeah. I do have some pictures of you.
Okay, you gonna have to show me some. I won't take it, but I want to see it now. I'm curious what you got. But you are with FANHS right now.
Yeah.
What is FANHS?
Filipino American National Historical Society.
And before FANHS, you started with FYC. What is FYC?
Filipino Youth Coalition.
Filipino Youth Coalition. So, what got you into FYC? What was the time like? So yeah, break it down. Break it down.
Yeah. First time I heard about FYC was in high school. And FYC was doing a lot of great community work with the young people, providing services to those who were at risk and also heavily impacted by gangs.
Yeah. What times? What are the times around this? What year?
So I was in high school 2016.
Do the math. I got him. Okay, keep going. Keep going.
No, yeah, this was FYC's been around since the 90s, and when I first heard of FYC was late 90s. And so never took part in FYC because I didn't necessarily identify with that part of the Filipino culture or identity yet. You know, I grew up in the East Side, so I was around a lot of Samoans, Blacks, and Latinos. And I was one of the only Filipinos that was in my neighborhood. Anyhow, to connect it to FYC, FYC was working with a lot of at-risk young people. And so when I graduated high school, I had a friend, Charmaine Santos, who said, "Hey, Abe, I think you might be interested in this. You should come check it out." And so I went to a Tuesday night meeting. And
Every Tuesday.
You know, every Tuesday. And you had some pretty interesting Filipinos up in there.
Okay.
And they were talking about history and identity, which I was interested in, but just never had.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, Filipino club, they're doing some interesting things, but I wasn't into it.
Right.
But the way FYC was taking it was on a whole different level, right? And so later on, a couple years later, I started to connect more with the folks from FYC, the staff, and then Steve Arevalo, who was the ED at the time, you know, talked to me and was like, "Yo, you interested in working with the young people?" And I was so stoked because I was like, wait, I get to connect with young people that might have similar backgrounds or experiences. Hell yeah. And so I worked for FYC for a number of years and just got to do a lot of good work and do a lot of, and that's kind of also where my photography started to really build because I was documenting FYC
Right.
at the time. So
what's the most memorable time you had with FYC?
man,
Like anything that pops up, you know, what is that memorable moment? Like
there's so many. You know, FYC used to do this thing called Rites of Passage. So every summer they would take groups of students from all over San Jose or Santa Clara County to the damn Santa Cruz retreat center.
Okay.
And this is where you would learn about yourself, do self-reflection, and build and bond as a community. And I remember, man, you know, you're there as a mentor, so you gotta uphold your image and be supportive, right? Because these are young people that are, you know, having a vulnerable experience and moment, right? They're outside, they're not in their environment, they're not around their family, they're talking about certain things. And man, I remember I started breaking down and I was triggered to go back into my own history and experience as a teenager and release things that I've never released before, because, you know, I was always taught to have a hard exterior and not to share certain things. And I tell you, that moment to not just release and share, but to connect with others and have them understand my pain and trauma really allowed me to start my healing process.
Sure.
Right? With past drug addiction, with gangs, with, you know, losing friends, with coming from a divorced family and whatnot. And so, yeah, that started and it helped me get to a point of like really wanting to do the work that I do today.
For sure. I mean, I think that's a beautiful thing, and the way we build and have the strong connection is really when it comes to when we become vulnerable. You know what I mean? Because that is the most honest moment of ourselves, when we are vulnerable. And when someone's being vulnerable to you, you cannot help but to also be able to share your vulnerability.
Right.
And those are like instant connections with people.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, generally, like, you know, we're taught to be like, nah, you know what I mean? Like, nah, I talk about my shit, you know what I mean? You know, because we have the general idea of like, oh, like, they can use that against me in a sense, right? Like, oh, they can look down on me, you know.
Or not look up to me.
For sure, right? And so, but at the end of the day, we all struggle with something. And actually, if you share those struggles, like, you can see that you're not the only one.
Right.
And you'll be able to connect with people.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's a cool story,
Yeah.
Did you cry, though? Did you have some tears?
Bruh, I think I flooded the auditorium. You know?
You had beavers building dams and shit.
I was like, why are my clothes wet?
Oh, it was raining. It was raining. That's what it was.
It was raining, yeah. It was the summer. It was raining. It was that summer that was raining, man. Shoot.
That's what's up. Yeah. So from FYC to FANHS, how did you get into FANHS?
Man, I got introduced to FANHS when I was 18. I went to Seattle, the headquarters, for an event. My pops took me out there. My pops is part of FANHS, and I had no clue what FANHS was,
right?
Whatever. And when I went out there, Filipinos out there are like Filipinos from the Bay. Their swag, their twang. And so I was like, man, these Filipinos remind me of like Bay Filipinos. Like, this is kind of weird. And I was able to connect. And the history out there is because, you know, Filipinos lived amongst other people of color, and it was hood.
Yeah.
That's just how it was. And so,
that's what we become.
Yeah. And so I wasn't expecting that. But when I touched down, and I was like, wow, you could be hood. And this is when I was learning what revolutionary is. And I was like, you could be hood, community, and revolutionary. You know, I was getting checked. Like, they were checking me like, yo, so you wear those Nikes, so what that mean? And I'm like, I'm like, they comfortable. They cool.
Yeah.
But they was checking me on that level of colonialism and capitalism. And I was at an age where I didn't even know.
You're still learning. You're still learning.
So that's kind of like the birth stages of being introduced to FANHS. And then throughout the years, you know, as I became more involved with the community and organizing, FANHS started to take a different understanding for me and meaning in my life. And I got to work very closely with Uncle Fred and Auntie Dorothy Cordova, which they taught me a lot of the importance of knowing your not only your culture, but your history and how it plays its role in America, right? And so from there, I was like a sponge, you know, and I connected with so many different folks who were part of so many different movements, like that are connected to FANHS, and so that's kind of like where I'm at right now, and my involvement is how do we continue the stories and documenting and educating people of our, you know, not just our experience here in America, but our whole diaspora,
for sure,
the world.
So in terms of FANHS, in terms of documenting history, is there a specific or recent events that y'all are looking at and able to like record it?
Yeah, so right now the chapter is working with Manong Robert Ragsack, who is leading the efforts to document Pinoy Town, which is existent in Japantown here in San Jose, where a lot of the old timers or Manongs used to exist, and Filipino families that were existing during the years from 1950s as early to the 70s, where there was actually Pinoy-owned businesses, an actual community there. So that's one thing that the chapter is working on. And then there's a number of things that the chapter is focusing on as far as how are we collecting stories of Filipinos who have families existing in the Santa Clara Valley,
right?
To make sure that we do have a story here. It's not just a gang of Filipinos. There's a reason why we live here.
We have our own story, right, but interconnected with all the stories in terms of like our whole history. We have record all aspect of it from our experience now,
Right.
and to the generations that came before us,
Right.
and be able to trace it all the way back to the Philippines,
Right.
and be able to look at it, our history as a whole, collectively, our history of our people, and see what we can do to make those changes.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Right.
so, but in terms of Pinoy Town is located in.
Japantown, here in San Jose, which is off of 6th and Jackson.
Okay, so what came first?
The chicken or the egg?
Yes, I think it might have been the chicken.
According to science, it was the egg. Yo.
Really, who sat on that?
No, what do you mean? What came first?
In terms of Japantown, Pinoy Town, I know
The history of it. So originally it was Chinatown,
yes,
right? And then it later evolved, and then Japantown was in existence, and then Filipinos migrated into that area because of familiarity of possibly groceries or things that they were able to access because of not maybe accessing outside of that community. And there was also an African American community and population there as well. So it's interesting when you look at the history of Japantown, and even till today, bro, and you see the different ethnic groups that have migrated there or existed there. Like there's still folks that are, over there where you see like the Ethiopian community.
right.
And, it's just crazy. So
Yeah, I'm curious in terms of the transition of history, like, Chinatown. I wonder how the Chinese Exclusion Act played out, and the Japanese internment, and then, like for the Filipinos moving in and be able to, I mean, I can understand, like, you want to be in a place where you can, like, see people like that look like you, at least at the closest anyway, you know what I mean?
Or buy some, like some carabasa or some eggplant.
And San Jose was like a farm town, right?
Yeah.
And so, and again, back to what we were pointing out earlier at the beginning of this is that, we all came here as farmers, you know what I mean? So, yeah, you were asking about the picture.
Break that picture down, because I see the KKK on there.
Right? Just to
bones.
calm folks down, KKK, not what we know in terms of the U.S. KKK is the Katipunan. It's KKK, which represents the Philippine Revolution that fought against the Spaniards in terms of gaining its independence. So the story goes that there was a school event, and there was someone doing a live painting. It's a huge painting of Andres Bonifacio, and on top there's the 3 letters KKK. And so while he was finishing it up, he had the KKK already, and he was trying to finish up the words, right? There's like a group of black students come through, and they were like, "What the fuck is that?" And we're like, no, hold on. Like, we had to like chop it up with them. At the same time, like, be able to educate them about our history. And so we were sharing about, these folks are revolutionaries, and actually, like, in terms of solidarity with the black community, there has been a history of the black soldiers, in terms of American black soldiers coming to the Philippines and defecting from America. So there's a history in terms of solidarity with Filipinos and blacks, you know what I mean? So, yeah. But in terms of you, like, what has been your biggest struggle, and what has been your biggest victory?
Yeah. So struggles, right there. I've been around the block, so there's just a number of struggles, but I definitely will share in regards to what I would identify or say was one of my first experiences with actual struggle. So growing up in a divorce or single parent household, growing up in one of the toughest neighborhoods of East Side San Jose, and being exposed to a lot of elements of, violence, crime, gangs, and drug use, and everything else that comes with that. as a young person, you're impressionable and susceptible to whatever is
You're around.
influencing you.
Yeah,
right?
your community.
And so, when you have a single parent that's at work all day, all night, and you're on your own and you're trying to figure out who's going to be, someone you can hang out with or even get support from, that's the neighborhood. Now, the neighborhood I was really afraid of because I was young, right? I was very young, 11, 12 years old. And you have to learn how to survive in that type of neighborhood.
And this was the gangster era.
This was definitely the gangster era. So in order to do that, then you have to be vulnerable and just like go with the flow and either get beat up or join the folks that are beating the people up.
That's how it was,
Yeah.
Like it's
And so when you're hanging around with a lot of folks who might not have what we think is a positive future or positive footprint, then you go with that, right? If all your homies are doing one thing, you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to do that too, because that's what we do.
that's what you see.
And, when you're in school and you get labeled or identified as a certain individual or group, then that system treats you that way. And when you get confronted or you experience your first encounters with police and it's not a positive experience, then you start looking at the system like,
Yes.
what the hell? F the system.
Right.
F these fools. So I started to getting exposed, but also developing these layers and these layers of survival and confidence, right? And confidence in the sense of being able to conquer and crush things that get in your way that might be against you, right? Not like exceeding to a goal and accomplishing something.
Right.
That was out of the picture because I was already told, well, you're not going to be anything. You come from this area, so you're like this, and so you're like, okay, then that's what I am. And going to the struggle part throughout life, the traumas that I experienced and saw, whether it was people passing, overdosing, addiction, getting involved with the juvenile justice system, you start to have this mentality of I don't care or I don't see myself going far.
You become very apathetic.
Numb. And so the struggle was like being able to exist and survive in that mind state, but also in the environment. The victory, the win part, because there's so many wins and victories in my life like I could talk about, but the huge part was being able to figure out how to navigate that, how to allow positive influences in people to tell me that there's more to it than the life that I was understanding, right? And I'll tell you this: my first job was working at a drug rehab. I was what I will take pride in. I was a maintenance engineer.
Okay.
And what that breaks down to is I was cleaning.
Engineer.
I was cleaning the shit.
Yeah, you make sure shit's clean. But you're an engineer. Forget about it.
But this drug rehab, I'm going to the win. The drug rehab, I was seeing my friends coming in there, right? Or people that were on probation, and they used to think, oh, Abe, you're here too? They didn't know it, and I was ashamed to say I was cleaning the toilets and everything, and I would just play it off and say, they're like, you're doing community service, and I'm like, yup.
Yeah.
So one of the counselors just happened to know, like, I was not the perfect angel that I was trying to play when I was working there. And he said, I don't know how we're going to talk to these young people. They're not listening to us. They're just coming because they're signing off, for probation. They have to, right? And so Robert, who was the counselor, he's like, hey, why don't you join the group and, just talk with them and see how it goes. And so I sat in a group and I'm like looking at all these folks, and most of them were my friends.
Yeah.
B&G and some other heads. But you know, I would just kick off conversation because I would always hear what the counselors were trying to talk about, and I'd be like, "Oh, what do you think about this?" And after a while, they're like, "Damn, maybe you're making more of a connection," and I was just like, "Oh, okay." And then I think later on from there, then I started to realize what I can do, right? And then that's how also I connected and found FYC. And that was a huge win because I mentioned earlier how I was able to acknowledge my own trauma.
For sure.
And be able to be vulnerable. And I think from there, I started to really understand what kind of an impact I could have on other people's lives, and also one way to give back, because I took so much from the community and just from my own family that, you know, I think the win was understanding how I could give back.
For sure.
And how to course correct, right? Because I think once you start to understand, okay, I did some bad, but I can also do some good, to really look back in the past and figure out I can't go back and correct that, but I can correct myself in the present so I don't repeat it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's dope. Like, man, like, you know, we talk about in terms of like, it takes a village to raise a child. In essence, you were growing up in a community that was, in a sense, not providing hope. You saw, I mean, we grew up in a gangster era. There was a lot of gang violence. There was a lot of drugs that was happening. There was a lot of interaction with the police that wasn't great. And being in that community, young people really lose hope, and they become apathetic to themselves and to other people around them. And so they become destructive.
Right.
And so, yeah, and I think that's the beauty of FYC, is that when it came, I mean, when it was put together, is purposely to serve, specifically around that time, in terms of providing a space for folks that have been impacted by gangs, and provide like a space to get to know themselves, and there's a hope that they can be something outside of what was happening at that moment in time.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's a must. These programs for the youth must continue, and we must continue to like invest social services, mental health services to the youth, because that was a different time. So the youth now are facing a different situations but they still need those resources, and it's more important now, especially in COVID pandemic. You know, it has had a lot of impact in terms of the youth,
right?
Especially their mental health,
right?
You know what I mean? So, did you ever join the gangs? You ain't gotta say it. But you know,
no confirmation.
Okay.
I mean, you know, bottom line, I was in a neighborhood. And I was in a number of different circles. So, you know, you either get beat up or you figure out how to survive and join with those who might be the people beating up. For
sure. Yeah, I mean, like, you know, I grew up in a small town, an hour away from Reno. It was like country. You know, I emulated in terms of like being white. I graduated high school. I joined the military. You know, I went from Bremerton to San Diego, and but I was able to like build outside of the bases and like come into the communities. And you know, gangs were prevalent in all the communities that I went into. But yeah, surprisingly, I never got into gangs. But I was able to build with people and just, you know, like have that relationship, like just be like building trust and understanding, you know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, there's situations that like I know people from the opposite group, you know what I mean? And yeah, that was hard. And there's situations that has happened that's like, oh man, things could have been avoided. And so, but yeah, we grew up in that era. And so it was a crazy era for our community, because a lot of young people, like, you know, have been impacted by that in terms of, you know, our generation. And so,
yeah,
man. So yeah. So do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. So you have this energy about you, like you're cool, calm, collective, right? When you're around folks and when we're in different settings, but man, you have this crazy spirit and energy when you out there in the streets, when it's time to get down to, you know, boots to the ground, organizing and marching and whatnot. And so if y'all haven't seen this guy, he a ball of energy, and if you don't let him loose, he might just explode, and it might not be a good thing. But I wanted to ask, you know, where does that spirit and that drive come from? Because every time, you know, sometimes I'm like thinking in my head, hey, Lupo's not a man. We might have to hit up the Lupo.
Bring this alive.
We need to get this party started. Like this is kind of dead. And so I just wanted to ask you that, because over the years I've watched you. I've worked with you, and even marched alongside you. And it's never died. Like that flame has never died. So I just want to know, where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the point of, like, it takes a village to raise a child. You know, it takes all of us to make changes in communities. It takes all of us to make change in the world. And because, you know, I grew up in poverty. I grew up in the Philippines from my first 11 years. You know, yeah, like, straight along the Riles. It was like railroads, you know, shanty town. And so that in itself, that experience was become a driving force. And at the time, you're young, you don't know better. Like in terms of your struggle growing up in the hood, that's what you come to accept. And you assume that the world is like that, you know what I mean? Right. And so, yeah, and I assumed that, like, oh, it's normal that we're poor and we could barely eat. You know what I mean? It was like, it was a good day if we have meat. You know what I mean? Oh, there's a story I can remember. Like, my grandma raised me. She would send us to, like, buy noodles, like a pack of noodle with a big old pot, and that one rabbit, you know, would feed like a lot of people. And so I grew up in that, and then coming to U.S., you know, and then like learning more about the history, and finding a group of people that wants to change that. You know what I mean? And so that has been like the driving force for me to continue, and it becomes a lifetime commitment to make that changes, because our people is struggling. They're dying. They're being killed. You know what I mean? And it's every day it's a battle. It's crazy, and so it's a must, because I see it for myself. Like, I see it, like, there's current killings that's happening. There's farmers that's being killed. There's peasants that are being killed. And you know what I mean? Like, so these are the things that I see, and because I see it, it's a must that I find a way, find the capacity, and find the strength to find a way to contribute to make the changes. You know what I mean? And so that's really been the driving force. Like, the Philippines is rich as fuck in terms of resources, minerals. Man, 7,000, so many islands, you know what I mean? Over 7,000 islands.
Right.
And the richness of it is there, but our people is living in poverty and corruption. And so knowing this is, in essence, is that, like, we can make changes. And, you know, I don't separate myself as an individual. Like, you know, I'm not there no more. I ain't got to worry about that shit. No, but, like, all our history is connected. Like, our history is a collective history. That's our history, and that is actually the driving force why we are here in the U.S., because we have been forced to migrate because of those conditions. And so there was that Jay-Z song, like, if you escape Paris, you go to Paris. I was sharing with Ruel, like, DJ Eternal, like, like, we can escape it. So what do we do? What can we do to not necessarily allow people to escape from it, but change the motherfucking system so they don't have to escape it? You know what I mean? Right. And so, that's been the driving force. And like, so this is a lifetime commitment, and we out here no matter what till the wheels fall off. You know what I mean? I'm gonna do whatever I have, whatever within my capacity, and I will always find a way to increase the capacity to contribute in some ways. So
but I get that. I get that. I know that of your work and what you put into it. But you a crazy jumping bean up when it comes down to, you know, getting the boots to the ground. Like I said, when we're actually out there. So where did that come from? Like, I get it. You're connecting everything to what you just said,
right?
And that's what's the driving
the
force,
physical
right?
energy.
The physical energy, though. Where has DeLupo always been that, man? Because all these years, that's how you is. I'm like,
yeah,
oh shit,
I get excited.
It's about to get started. And if you don't know how to dance or chant or move, this brother's gonna be the one to help you do it for your first time.
You're gonna be moving. Yeah, yo, it's the motherfucking rise. It's the rise, y'all. That gives you that energy, y'all. Nah, like, you know.
He didn't say rise like the sun. He said rise, yo.
Hey, we getting old. You know what I mean? Don't want to give up our ages and shit. But, you know, that rice be selling out here. So I got to move my shit. I got to be like, yeah, that's my workout, bro. That's my workout.
Power.
Rice. Let's go. But anyways, that's our Blazi Blah podcast.
Yee.
Yo, thank you for coming through, bro.
Thank you, brother.
Hey, thank you for the book. I just took it. Thank you. But yeah, thank you for watching, listening. Make sure to subscribe, like, and appreciate all the support. And again, this is Blazi Blah, where we connect, build, and break bread with our kin folks in our community. So, hey.